Imagine getting close to 2026 and Pokemon cards are still insanely difficult to find, though it may actually change soon. Though as much as Pokemon cards are changing, it's actually getting a little exhausting keeping up with the hobby, particularly around the fact that this hype period kind of should have calmed down by now. I mean, if we take a quick look at Google Trends when we look at the search term Pokemon cards, it actually seems like Pokemon cards, the search intent has calmed down quite a lot. Now, this isn't exactly like perfect reasoning, though usually search intent and demand can be linked pretty closely. And the reason I know this is because my profession outside of this channel is in marketing. So in marketing, we track a lot of metrics, though when traffic or search intent spike, it's usually a very good indicator that something is in a high demand period. And even though some of the hype has calmed down, it still is pretty bizarre seeing Pokemon products still be this difficult to purchase. In fact, last year around this time, you could actually pick up booster boxes for like Scarlet and Violet and Paradox Rift for under 100 USD. I mean, something like that doesn't even seem possible at this stage, especially when we're looking at some sealed product and Pokemon cards at the moment. I mean, check this out. All right, one that we need to speak about at the moment is the Kingdra Special Illustration Rare, which has had some pretty big price growth. Now, a few things about this card in particular that we need to talk about. Number one, that this card, along with the Greninja, are probably some of the most unique Special Illustration Rare artworks from the whole Scarlet and Violet era. Nothing really like them. Really cool that we got them as a pair for Shrouded Fable. And of course, there's a lot of irony as well because Shrouded Fable is considered probably the most unlike set by collectors as a cohort for the Scarlet and Violet era. Regardless, we can see 3 months ago selling for 24 USD. Right now, this card is selling for 68 bucks, which is, pretty expensive for a promo card. But nonetheless, I do think because it is quite difficult to obtain, it only came in one Kingdra promo box, definitely a unique artwork. That's definitely made it a more attractive card for collectors at this stage because they're looking at it and saying, hey, I want that unique artwork. Well, guess what? You need to either buy a Kingdra promo box or you need to buy this card raw. And of course, collectors need to make their decision on what they're doing at this stage. Now, moving on to one that is just going completely out of the realms of common sense. Somewhat surprised, somewhat I kind of do understand why it's going like this because like I said, Bubble Mew is definitely a very unique artwork for the Scarlet and Violet era. Paladin Fates is getting super expensive. Regardless, 3 months ago, selling for 332 US, definitely expensive already. Right now, selling for 681 USD. I almost can't believe when I say that out loud how quick this has gone up in price. Really, really wild price points. I think a lot of people right now, including myself, are regretting not buying this card earlier when it kind of dipped this year because, we're all looking at that saying, wow, what is going on? And, Paladin Fates, maybe we'll get some reprints. I'm not sure at this stage. Nothing really confirmed at this point. Of course, it's getting pretty unlikely because we're entering a new era, though, man, that is an expensive card right now. And, given how many collectors love Mew, given how many people love this artwork, it's becoming a very desired collectible at this point. And I do think as time goes on, I have an intuition that this might become the most desired card from the Scarlet and Violet era. I don't really want to talk out of line and I definitely don't want to hype this card more than it's already been hyped. But like I've always said, the artwork is so unique. It has its own style. It has its own character, has its own story for the era. I really rate this card. I don't own this card myself, but I would love to have it in my collection. I probably am kicking myself that I didn't buy this when it was like an $80 card last year. I remember seeing that and I was like, oh yeah, pretty good price point. But of course, who would have known that Pokemon cards just decided to go as wild as they did? And of course, a lot of people want these in their collection. But when I'm looking at that card and seeing how iconic it's become, definitely an interesting collectible at this point. Now, interesting one are the gold cards, the Japanese cards from, Mega Symphonia and Mega Brave. Here I'm on the Mega Lucario EX, the gold card. These cards came out, a lot of people jumped on them, a lot of people like them. You can see right now this card's selling for 418 US. That's a really big price point at the moment for this card. Yes, they're definitely hard to pull, very in demand. They're very unique as well. I do wonder this whole new monochromatic color phase that's happening. I am noticing a lot of people are loving to collect these at the moment, whether or not that's going to be a trend, whether or not that's going to stay. But right now you can see it's getting very expensive, these gold cards in particular. Another one now to look at is the Mega Gardevoir from Mega Symphonia, currently selling for 469 US. The Japanese Mega sets are really in demand right now. Of course, we've got Mega Evolutions for the English sets coming about, but a lot of people are liking to collect Japanese Pokemon cards right now because the price of these is a little bit more of an easier entry point than English at this point, point because Japanese Pokemon cards are definitely easier to get right now. Now also, while we're speaking about these cards from, Mega Symphonia and Mega Brave, if you do love purchasing Japanese Pokemon cards and products, that does bring me to today's video sponsor, which is Buy. Now, Buy is a Japanese proxy shopping service that lets you buy from top retailers like Rakuten, Amazon Japan, and many others. And it actually ships everything straight to your door. Now, Buy actually has fantastic search capabilities. For example, you can just type in the new mega sets, or you can even just search Pokemon cards and it will show you what's available. Once you purchase your items, Buy takes care of the rest. Buy handles the package consolidation and even the international shipping. Now, Buy ships to multiple regions, including North America, Oceania, and Europe, which makes it super useful for international buyers. Now, the cool aspect about using Buy is that you can actually get exclusive Japanese products even if the stores don't ship overseas. And of course, this means Japanese Pokemon cards, including the new mega sets. Now, the best part is that all first-time users can actually get an exclusive 10% discount by using my link in the description. A big thanks to Buy for sponsoring the video and supporting the channel. Now let's get back into this video. Moving on to the Charizard from Obsidian Flames. Very, very big price growth just recently. Now here's the thing, if you don't know, I'm just showing you that graph right now. Before I go into the prices, how these things usually work when it comes to Pokemon collectibles. Usually things are really silent for a long period of time, and then something happens. People start talking. A lot of people just jump on a card at a particular time, and then a big price growth happens. It seems that this is happening now for Obsidian Flames Charizard, which is a little bit to be expected as well, right? It is a Charizard special illustration rare. It's also the top chase card from Obsidian Flames. When you kind of think about it, it's probably not that surprising as well. July this year was selling for around 60 US. Right now selling for $111. Now, it's had a big price jump, but also when I think about that, $111 for a Charizard special illustration rare for a top chase card from, early Scarlet and Violet era sets, it's actually not that crazy of a price point considering how expensive some other cards can be. But, the caveat here is the fact that how easy this card was to pull in terms of other special illustration rares. Like when we look at the Bubble Mew, off the top of my head, that's like 1 in 550 packs, right? This card off the top of my head is like 1 in 220 packs. So there's a big difference in how easy this card is to pull. And, because of that, it's kept the price low for quite a long time. Now, moving on to another interesting card, it's the Detective Pikachu promo. Check this one out. 3 months ago, selling for 70 US. Right now selling for $164. What's even more crazy, if we pull this into the year graph, you can see last year selling for $31. Pretty big price growth. Interesting things happening. Like I said, promo cards have just got so many people loving it. A lot of people paid banana prices for them. It's still happening. People still want to buy these really quickly. One thing, this card in particular, because it is quite hard to get, probably may stay at this price point. But the thing with promo cards, and the reason why I'm not too big on just like purchasing them when they spike, it's because sometimes it can seem that things get caught in a hype wave. If you've never kind of been in Pokemon collecting before, what happens is that these hype waves happen, like I spoke about earlier, right? But you can get a lot of people just jump on a hype wave, they get really excited, they see the prices go up, and then it can get confusing for collectors as well. If you are new to the hobby, sometimes when a big hype kind of wave happens, it's best to just see how it goes. Maybe the price will stay there, maybe it won't, but it's much better, especially if you're new, just to see where it stabilizes. And if it stabilizes there for a few months and you still want the card, then make your decision. You probably shouldn't be purchasing cards when they're in a hype momentum swing because like I've shown in a lot of other previous videos, a lot of them do come down as the months go on. But of course, no one can predict this. And that's just part of the game, right? That's why a lot of people like Pokemon cards as well, because they just spike in price and then they go down, and then you're always just chasing the kind of market with how it works. But of course, it's always good to just take your time before overspending on a lot of these cards. Moving on to another interesting one is the Pikachu Secret Rare from Crown Zenith, selling for $12 in June of this year. Right now, this card is selling for 34 US. Definitely an interesting card. Like I said, this Pikachu to me is an S tier artwork. One of the best Pikachu artworks I think we have in the TCG. And imagine if this card was the special illustration rare from Surging Sparks. I think this would definitely be one of the top chase cards of the era. Even though the Surging Sparks Pikachu is definitely desired, we can see as the era's kind of continued, a lot of cards are overtaking it because, maybe maybe the artwork isn't that exciting as other cards for the era. I do think this card is definitely a loved card, but of course, the reason why the price point is still quite, accessible for a lot of collectors is because how easy this card was to pull in terms of other cards, in the era. And, before, a lot of people actually thought that this card would be super, super pricey, but, when people saw Crown Zenith and how easy this card was to pull, the price really went down. Now, interesting one, the Evolving Skies Dragonite V. Check this one out. Selling for around $233 in July of this year. Right now, selling for $294 US. Really cool card. I really like this Dragonite artwork. Dragonite might be getting more hype now as well. Like I said, I do have an intuition that we will get a Mega Dragonite card, especially for the Mega Evolution era. It definitely would be a cool special illustration rare to get. But of course, Dragonite as well, massive fan base. It is not exactly a niche Pokemon, but there is a big fan base for Dragonite as well. So, Dragonite cards to me are always interesting because you do get collectors that really love getting them in their collection. Now, interesting one to look at here is the Mewtwo from Crown Zenith. Now, Crown Zenith has really been climbing in price lately, and a big reason for that is a lot of people have just realized, like, hey, Crown Zenith was an awesome set, dude. And of course, this was known by a lot of people in the community. I'm not just saying that because it's like, oh, I can see Crown Zenith cards and Crown Zenith Seal products climbing. A lot of people spoke about Crown Zenith when it released and how amazing of a set it was. Like, because when you look at the set as a whole, the artworks are incredible. Of course, now the prices are reflecting that. So I don't want to just sound like I'm now glazing over Crown Zenith because the prices are high. If you actually go back to a lot of my earlier videos, I always spoke very highly about Crown Zenith, and it was always one of my favorite sets from Pokemon. In fact, I did make a video talking about the 10 greatest Pokemon sets of all time, and I did rank Crown Zenith in the top 5 sets ever created. It is such a good set with such amazing artworks. This Mewtwo, check this one out in the last 3 months, selling for $101 US. Right now, selling for $126. If we pull this into the year graph, you can see the previous high point for this card was 127, and right now it's pretty much leveling that at this stage. I do think because Crown Zenith is getting quite hard to find, the sealed product is definitely climbing as well. There is a chance that this card could exceed that previous high point, but of course, we're going to have to see how it works. Mewtwo is a little bit trending right now, especially with Team Rocket's Mewtwo, very much in discussion at this point. I do think that, this artwork, especially if you don't know anything about this artwork, there is a Charizard V-Star promo, and this is actually the reverse viewpoint of that. Really cool little Easter egg about this card. You've got Mewtwo and Charizard battling, and you can actually see it from 2 different perspectives. Really awesome card. You can see last year around this time, this card was selling for $52, and of course right now selling for $125. Very interesting how Pokemon cards behave because, you can buy really cool Pokemon cards. You can just leave them in a binder, wait a year, wait 2 years, and of course the prices can climb up, but of course that's not guaranteed. That's the cool thing about Pokemon. That's the thing why people like collecting Pokemon cards, because there is this level that you can kind of blend your hobbies with a level of enjoyment, with a level of, hey, some of my Pokemon cards are also climbing up in price. So it is a very interesting time for this card in particular, and of course Mewtwo cards in general. Now, by the way, I actually have been doing a lot more live streaming lately, and a quick way to get updates is through my channel's official Discord server. If you set up the right roles, you'll actually get notifications whenever I'm doing an exclusive live stream and giveaway. The server invite is in the video's description. Now, another interesting one is the Garchomp from Astral Radiance. Now, I've just pulled this into the year graph so you can see how much this one's climbed in price. Has gone down a little bit this year, but it's interesting because the Cynthia's Garchomp from Destined Rivals is a very loved card. But check this one out. Last year, selling for $26, went all the way up to $78, and I think that was because, we had that Destined Rivals hype. We knew we were getting Cynthia's Garchomp in Destined Rivals. I think a lot of people anticipated, oh, Garchomp's gonna blow up. So, there was a lot of hype building for this card, and of course it was selling for, pretty much 80 USD. And right now it's selling for 59 US. Moving forward, the Sword and Shield era is definitely going to get remembered with a lot of love. We can see sealed booster boxes for Sword and Shield. They're really climbing. I just saw recently that Fusion Strike booster boxes are nearly becoming $1,000 a booster box, which is getting pretty insane if you ask me, because a lot of us who have been here for a while, right? We were opening Fusion Strike like nothing. Like, it was such an easy set to purchase. You could find Fusion Strike for super cheap prices. Of course, right now, when you look at it and you can see selling for $1,000 a booster box, it's like, wow, how did that even happen? And it's really funny because back then, a lot of people said, oh, all these people buying modern Pokemon cards, you got no idea what you're doing. You know, that was a big thing. Everyone was like, you know, it was a big thing. Everyone said vintage cards are going to climb, not modern Pokemon cards. But of course, we can now see modern sealed and modern Pokemon cards are really climbing in price. So the future of these cards and where they're going to go is an interesting discussion point to be had at this stage, because a lot of people are just enjoying investing in collectibles. It's becoming a different game at this point, and I think 2026 and 2027 are going to be the eras and the years that define this hobby, because we have to see, sure, if it's already continued in 2024, is 2025 a fluke? I think next year and 2027 especially are going to be the years that really kind of make Pokemon cards and, you know, the whole investing in collectibles, it's going to probably be a turning point, because if it continues and all these card prices that people have purchased, and if everything continues to rise, then a lot of people are going to shift. There's going to be a lot of talks about collectibles. Since January of 2025 to right now, Pokemon cards are still super hard to get when they release. And it's like right now, a lot of people are saying, hey, it should have been fixed. And I kind of agree. At this point, it feels like it should have been fixed. But, you know, something's changed with the hobby. A lot more people have entered, and definitely a big shift has happened with the way people perceive collectibles. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens, as I said, a few years from now, because, you know, if it continues and a lot of people still enjoy investing in collectibles, you know, the game is really going to change. Though times are changing, especially around sealed product and the future of collectibles. However, a key area we need to talk about for collectors is, will collectors' preferences change within 2026? Well, I actually reveal the answer in this video here. In this video on screen, I discuss the current Pokemon investing shift where people are purchasing PSA 10 cards over everything else. If you want to learn more about that topic, click the video that's appearing on screen, and I'll see you on the next video.